Hey everybody, for those watching live, actually this is a little bit of a quick break, but it's kind of back to my roots as a part 2 of the YouTube video I did earlier. I'll link that in the description below, but more importantly, it's a conclusion for now of the theme of what we started off going on down the rabbit hole with on the space technology. You guys voted for the weather warfare, space technologies, orbital grid theme, which is actually melded incredibly well with the current war themes on the YouTube side that we can actually talk about there too. But we're kind of coming to where I want to conclude for now with this topic, because there are other topics out there that we need to cover. But with all of these astrological alignments, cosmological myths that are pervasive in our past, we can build a conclusive argument for what is happening by these Templar factions as it relates to space and such, and potentially move on to some of these other things that the V steganography can be applied to in the Patreon videos to come. So there's a little bit of overlap. First video here in November. And again, if you didn't catch the YouTube video, I guess it wouldn't be an again statement. But I did explain over there in the proverbial part 1 here. And then I'm sorry, I haven't been around much, especially during these last election nonsensical periods. This whole Trump-Biden nonsense, where I'm not even, it's funny. I find myself being, it's nice. Cause I was actually over on the YouTube stream. I was calling him Mr. Red, Mr. Blue, just so I don't kick off any censors over there when I upload the video. Cause it's just so finicky. They'll get you for anything with those algorithms, man. So we'll talk a little bit more freely, but I'm sorry I haven't been around. I had to take a little bit of a break, actually on November 5th, on Guy Fawkes Day, which I wanted to record a video and didn't get around to it. But, it didn't happen. I had to take a day off. I was a little bit stressed. We had to put on homecoming for the kids this last week. But I'm here. I'm here to close these things out. And I'm also here to close out why this is such a significant find. And I'm loving my patrons so much, you guys. This information, there's some information that I'm going to be talking about in this video that came directly from you guys, and how it all factors into the V steganography, which I think is brilliant. So this was surfaced to me V25 by one of my subscribers. And it's a golden American Eagle coin that came out with the St. Gaudens mark, and then the Silver Eagle coin, which is the classical, just silver coinage proofs, but they have this commemorative stamp on them for this, or the Privy mark, as they're talking about, to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the World War II victory. Why this is important is because it's stamped with the V75 for the victory on World War II. We have V Day, 2 victory days, in May 7th, and also on August 15th. And we're going to find out how significant those are to this financial reset. The Templars, the wizards, seem to be bringing about. So another thing I want to prime us with here is that in the last videos, we may have some listeners who are not familiar, because we're streaming this one today over on D Live and Theta. If you're not familiar with my Patreon channel, you can just go find me on there, Skullcap Savant. It's the same moniker you can find me at everywhere, except unlike on Theta and some other platforms where they don't allow you to have spaces in your name, I do have a space in my Patreon name. I've got certain tiers. $5 will help you join the Discord, and $15 will get you into the research documents, which are here, of course. We've gone over that in previous videos. But you can join the community and help solve some of this stuff by applying the V cipher. And lately, we've been on this bent that I've been talking about since September 27th. So we've got the Venus and Space Wars sagas, Tesla's Forgotten V Legacy, all about how the ether interoperates. It's the very medium by which the new wave of technology that humanity is about to experience getting is a current. And then right here at about October 10th is where we're starting to insert, as it works into the tapestry, this whole Templar side of the knowledge bearing. And that is what they are, apparently, in my way of thinking, is a knowledge bearer of sorts. How Saturn factors in, how this is an ancient spell of sorts that he may have no way other than mindful knowing of it to overtake it. Then, of course, in the last videos, the Mandalorian ties to the Nordic Templar legacy, what this means for the founding of the United States and such. Factored in. We were talking about the Minnesota Nordic tie-in there. Okay, so these are videos that you can go watch that will give you a basis for understanding the tech behind why the Templars are involved in this whole space thing. And it's funny that at the heart of it, the Mandalorian is a spacefaring character who's got all the Templar trademarks. Here again is our man Mando from the show, and he, just like the Mandalorian creed, the Templar creed, to help people, to be hospitable to them, to honor your word, carry on knowledge in secret, lest the ones that are after you are going to find you out, to the point in the last episode, this last of the season 2, where even the New Republic, the guys with the X-wings that are patrolling local space, get after him because he's got an unmarked ship. Essentially, it's not registered. These are the fiddle fart arguments that we get in our society too. It's like, geez, you gotta put tabs on my car just to drive it, type stuff, lest you get arrested. And he's facing it. And the world's got regulation, and the Templars exist beyond the regulation. But just so we're clear on where we're starting with some of the tie-ins to this and why it matters to the general ethos of the channel, it's kind of what this video is going to be, because most of the crux of tonight's going to be closing out the topics of this book finally, because we've been slowly going through it, but I kind of want to put a conclusion on what I can teach you from its concepts in this video, so we can look at some other angles. But to do so, we're going to look at the season 1 recap of The Mandalorian, so people who haven't seen the show can check it out. And then we're going to look at the season 2 trailer to show what's going to happen coming up throughout the season, because a lot of the stuff in the trailer hasn't happened. But since we're not going to do deep analyses on this all season long, because I can't promise that. It depends on what gets surfaced. If we find some stuff that we've got to talk about, I got to talk about it. But anyhow, let's just play these back to back. Since we're not on YouTube, we won't get any strikes for playing a trailer. But here it goes, and we'll talk about it afterward.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. This being the case.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession, and I only pause it to remind everybody of the lambda, also very, very apparent. The reverse of the V steganography, of course, goes back to my whole iconography chart here, as above, so below. And we're going to get into some more stuff too that you may have never seen before, because I certainly hadn't seen it, as it relates to the V steganography itself in this video at the very end. Once we're finally graduated from the space tech stuff. But anyway, like I said, Mandalorian has these lambdas very, very apparent in the titling type font. And I like that it's all pointing up too. We don't have any actual V's here, which is just a good sign for the message being conveyed.
A man of your skill should make short work of this. What it is, I don't know. But what it does, this I've heard rumors of. I have spoken.
Any idea what they're gonna do with it? The kid's coming with me. Better chance at a life. I'm gonna need help.
I'm in.
They all hate you, Mando. Because you're a legend.
creed, you are as its father.
Who's he tracking?
The child.
Then they'll keep coming.
You have something I want. It means more to me than you will ever know. It will be mine. Come on, baby. Do the magic hand thing.
You must reunite it with its own kind.
You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature?
This is the way.
This is the way. If you guys saw the first season, you're familiar with all these scenes, but lot happened in that first season. At the very end, you saw the Norse iconography playing out, which I kind of touched on in this video too, about how the roots of the Templars are very much intertwined with this Viking lore too. So in the first season, the child, this baby Yoda, as everybody talks about it in popular culture, as represented by the human, we're the Merkaba. We are the young race ourselves who are uninitiated in the ways of Christ. In other words, the Templars are initiated in the ways of Christ to carry along the ancient Gnostic Christian knowledge through the annals of time, amidst all of the wars with the religious constructs, and have brilliantly played their cards to exist in the shadows to protect. And so that's kind of what this whole theme of the show is that Mandalorian is protecting Baby Yoda, us, i.e. the green energy, to bring about the forgiveness, to bring about that Christ awakening that the earth so desperately needs. And so, in a way, we can look at the Templars as our protectors, kind of like the Mandalorians, but also the ancient purveyors of knowledge. As described within their namesake, the Mandaeans, the people here in the United States, the Templars from this Nordic excursion, this regular excursion that they made, and apparently landed in Minnesota to make these land claims on the United States, as we discussed in this last video. All very important for the context of the United States story moving forward in these coming years, and what we're talking about the context of the election and the transition period that we're facing. So the whole thing is that the empire is collapsed. The empire has collapsed. The evil empire has collapsed, but they're still after Baby Yoda. So in this way, it's like, as embodied by Wetico or the evil forces, the Sith are gone in the Star Wars lore as it relates to this story. However, you still have those who would corrupt the power that is our innocence after it, which was what that guy with the dark saber represents to some extent. I think he's probably going to be a factor in season 2 as well, but we haven't seen him yet. So what we've got is the season 2 trailer that showed before the beginning of the season. Then we're going to pick this apart and show how it's relevant to this whole thing.
Show me the one whose safety deemed such destruction. You must reunite it with its own kind.
Child.
Where?
This you must determine. The songs of eons past tell of battles between Mandalore the Great and an order of sorcerers called Jedi.
Battle of ancient past between an order of sorcerers called the Jedi and the Mandalore. And as we know in this, well, as we may or may not, if you don't know the story of Mandalore, the Jedi that attacked them were compromised. They were basically moles. So you can think of the Jedi that kind of incited this war against the Mandalorians. It was kind of like a political coup, where it wasn't actually the Jedis. So it's the sorcerers. There's your clue, right? Remember in our manner of thinking, we've got the sorcerers, the Sith, the wizards, the Jedi. It's kind of how we refer to them as. Steve Jobs being one of these wizards guys, George Lucas being one of these wizard guys, James Cameron. There are people in society who have the Templar hallmark, let's just say, in everything they put out there in their messaging. They're telling you the spells they're casting. Hey guys, wake up. Here's the numerology is all tied in. The symbolism's all tied in. You can look for yourself. Look what we're saying to you. And of course, this is a Jon Favreau outfit, not a Lucas. It is a Lucasfilm outfit though. And so even though how everybody hates the new Star Wars movies, I'm not one of those people that don't hate the new Star Wars movies, because the message in the J.J. Abrams ones, that is, that's also conveyed with this whole story. So the Empire still wants us, and it's the sorcerers that are controlling this whole thing. And they said it plain as day with the whole, accentuation of it in the trailer.
You expect me to search the galaxy and deliver this creature to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.
Because he thinks they're enemies. He doesn't know that the Jedi are not actually sorcerers, right?
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
So I've heard.
This is the way.
So they're all about the way. So again, this is the creed that's carried forth, this knowledge bearing, okay? So the Mandalorians are the purveyors of this ancient knowledge. As we've been talking about the actual Templars, not the Mandalorian Templars, we've been talking about this concept of New Jerusalem taking root in the United States. We've talked about how, in the last video, how if you were to measure the dimensions of what New Jerusalem is supposed to be in the Bible, and then you match that up with what the square mileage of the 13 colony United States is, and it is virtually identical. There is no significant difference. It's negligible, like by fractions of feet or something like that. I've got to find the document. I should have brought that document up so I could show it in this presentation. But either way, why is this significant? Because remember, guys, there's something happening that the Templars are telling us along the way with the things that they're putting in actual monuments. Here it is. And the monuments that have been built with architecture, masonry, incredibly, impeccably placed in plain sight so we can see them. And the rituals that are carried out, like the ancients used to do with these monolithic structures that are all over Washington, D.C., for instance, the city of the Pentagon, we can start to get a little bit of a clear view as to what the real intel is. Not the Q intel, but the real intel, right? Because here's the fake Q. And the real knowledge, like the original Q that was asking people questions before the linguistics changed, having people investigate for themselves. Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? If you remember that didn't last long. And that was all part of the awakening process too, I think. But it got whatever its agenda was, got hijacked before, or maybe truly, as it reached its natural conclusion. But here, let's dichotomize for a second. This is a funny ad, funny, honest government, not a funny ad, but a funny video that these people do at the Juice Media, the honest government ads. and this one's on Q. So let's remind ourselves of what false or misrepresented clues in plain sight look like, and then as kind of a primer as to what really good clues in plain sight look like, and how we can tell the difference to pick apart what's happening with this whole Templar, Bitcoin reset, space platform future we treading into here.
I'm from the U.S. government. Does something feel wrong in the world, but you can't put your finger on it? Are you yearning to fight injustice and be part of something bigger? Do you do your own research? If so, you've been chosen to participate in our new PSYOP. QAnon. PSYOPs are usually carried out by our intelligence agencies in countries we've invaded or whose governments we've overthrown, in order to convince the local population that we're there to help them. QAnon is just like that, except the target isn't a foreign population. It's you. And the government we're planning to overthrow is... Follow the White Rabbit. At the heart of this PSYOP is Q, a government insider who will give you advance warning about major events, like the arrest of Hillary and deep state leaders, which never happened, and the end of the Democratic Party in 2018, who actually went on to win the House that year. And if years of fake predictions start to get you down, don't worry. Trust the plan. The best part of this PSYOP is you'll believe you're in a PSYOP, except that's not the PSYOP you're actually in, but the PSYOP where we let you think you're in a PSYOP. PSYOPception. All we have to do.
Isn't that crazy? Truer words have never been spoken. Even as funny as that word jumble is, it's the PSYOP. To think that you're in the real PSYOP, but you're actually in a different PSYOP is essentially, and that's the confusing part about all of it. But anyway, let me
was tell Il Duce to say tip top next to a white rabbit. Q-proof. Joining QAnon is easy because at its core there are some truths. Like the media really does lie to you. There really are powerful predators out there, and there really is a global pedophile ring that ritually abuses kids. But as you follow Q's droppings, you'll gradually LARP yourself deep into the rabbit's rectum, where you'll find others who yearn to fight injustice just like you. The 5G crew, the Plandemic crowd, the FEMA camps, and chemtrail folks too, all LARP together into a single LARP we can control. Where we...
You see that? The single LARP we can control. So they take all of the true stuff around the fringe, like the planned scandemic, like the coronavirus. They couple all this stuff in, and now they have a platform just to discredit it because of the Q stuff, which sucks that we're in that spot now. But that's the reality of it.
We LARP one, we LARP all. In exchange for all this entertainment and newfound sense of purpose, all we ask for in return is your help. No, you fucking idiots, not to arrest Hillary. You see, we have no intention of ceding power at this.
Hillary's dead. I'm convinced of it. Nobody needs to worry about Hillary. I think she's been dead since before the last election. I think that's probably the true reason why nobody's seen any arrests or anything of that extent, but I digress.
Election. So if it looks like we're winning on election night, we'll declare victory, even though millions of votes are still being counted. And if we're losing, we'll declare the election rigged. Either way, that's your cue to get in the streets and prevent further mail-in ballots from being counted. Just like what happened in Florida when rioters shut down the recount of the 2000 election. Among those rioters was this fuckwit, the same one who is now urging us to declare martial law should we lose the election. And among the lawyers who helped to stop the recount was the same one we're pushing hard to appoint to the Supreme Court right now. Coincidence? Follow the white fuckwit. All this should alarm patriots. Except Q has convinced patriots, even the guy who spent decades warning you about the police stated martial law, that martial law is now a good thing. The only thing that can ruin our plan to repeat 2000 is if there's an overwhelming voter turnout against us, which is why we've been doing all we can to deregister millions of you, purge voter rolls, and close polling stations to make voting as hard as possible. What's that? When do
both factions? Yeah, is this crazy? This happened way before the election, guys, and it's 2 weeks prior. I guess it wasn't that hard to forecast.
we take down the deep state? Aw, honey. The guy who exposed the real deep state is being tortured by it right now. And where are you? Oh, that's right. Q told you to trust the plan and have a big circle jerk on Aiken. The Great Awakening. And that's the purpose of QAnon, to convince those who would normally be on the front line of fighting our shitfuckery to sit by and watch as we prosecute your truth tellers, purge your justice system, and rat fuck this election. QAnon. Nothing can stop what's coming, because you'll be sitting on your ass when it does. Authorized by the Department for executing the biggest intelligence drop in U.S. history.
Anyway, that's always a fun one. I think some of you've probably seen that by now. But the whole emphasis we're going to make here is that PSYOPs can be getting to the bottom of if you do some hard-nosed research, and the V-steganography allows us to do that. So what I'm about to explain to you is one of those things. And this was, and like I said, the piece that I was missing, and I had no idea I was missing it until it came to me, because it connected, funny enough, to the very book that I'm rehashing for you guys in this series right now, the American Nation of the Goddess, which kind of lays out a large part, it would seem, of what the Templars' agenda actually is, because of the research that Alan Butler and Janet Wolter did here. Good night, Nope, again. Nice to have you. Glad you could make the stream. But going into the goddess part, of the book, where they're talking, the two authors are talking most about the alignments as they visited Washington, D.C. They had some theories they had to test themselves around the actual monuments in Washington, D.C. having significance to the goddess ritual playing out. And this is something in general that I'm going to pick apart much deeper on the next Patreon video, as it relates to the video game Destiny and the Horus and Isis mystery that I've now decoded completely. Actually, funny enough, because I went back down the rabbit hole of this book because of this information. So one of the things that's happening right now in plain sight is that in the United States of America, we're being transitioned from, it would seem, a sun is setting on the old and the sun is rising on a new. We have a revolution of sorts that's happening more than we have a civil war happening. And this is kind of what the media is purporting that we have. There was a World War II monument that the book covers that was built in Ellipse Park very recently in 2005. And this actually is a pool around a fountain. I think you guys can see that on the camera. It's a black and white photo. But the World War II memorial in Washington, D.C., this is, again, a World War II commemorated coin, V75, is something that was, again, built in 2005. V-steganography and the numerology, that reduces to 25. 5 times 5 is 25. So you reduce it down, the square root of 25 is 5. What is this pool called? It's called the Rainbow Pool. It's called the Rainbow Pool. They repurposed this thing called the Rainbow Pool in order to build this World War II memorial in 2005. And if anybody is not familiar with the rainbow connotation and the Bitcoin reset, well, you need to go back and watch some of my old YouTube videos from earlier this year and the Wizard of Oz meme. Wizards versus sorcerers, right? Somewhere over the rainbow, wishes and rainbows with the Bixweir, Federal Reserve, comic book theory. These are not new concepts to people that have been watching the V-steganography, but that didn't get me the first time I read this book. I wasn't as into looking for these clues, but there it was. It's called the Rainbow Pool. So there's something of a suggestive tone that I was getting from this particular theme, and as it relates to World War II, what might it have to do with this year's 2020 ritual, if anything, I was thinking. So I kept going back along with this whole research that they did on the Washington Monument and the World War II Memorial. And what you're going to find is here's another graphic. In that graphic, what you're seeing is a representation of the Washington Monument casting its shadow from west or east to west and touching right here the World War II monument at where the point of the shadow contacts the western side of the World War II memorial. Exactly, it penetrates it. And this is on August 15th that it does it exactly every year, which is one of the victory days that's celebrated from World War II. The other instance that the Washington Monument interacts with the same exact feature, the World War II Memorial and the pool, is when it touches the front entrance of it on the other victory day, May 7th, or between May 7th. May 7th is when Europe surrendered. May 8th is when we celebrated it. So it's confusing when you look up when V-Day was, but it was May 7th is when Europe surrendered. And that's the day that's commemorated by this astrological kind of creation here with monuments. It's a big sundial ritual that's been created. Nothing complex to begin with, but the specific placements of the Washington Monument as placed in this place in the National Mall, relative to the ellipse, relative to the Capitol building, which we talked about, indicates a specific design and ritual to point to something cosmologically. And so when it's lined up to these key dates, you also get other research that they did specifically around the solstices, June 21st, where the monument itself doesn't the shadow of the monument is so short that it barely touches the top of the ellipse. It cannot escape. But also you have a divine, basically, insemination ritual with the ellipse of the egg and the shadow, ellipse being the egg and the shadow being the phallus of the Washington Monument, barely kissing and penetrating the tip of the ellipse, starting on December 21st. What were we talking about in this video here? Saturn and the moon, ether frequency generator for mind control. Is that every year's 21st of December is important because it signifies the last day where the sun, the last day by which the sun's shortening cycle is apparent, which means it ends on that day. The sun's shortening cycle ends on the solstice of winter on the 21st, and the days from that point forward get longer. It is a rebirth. It was always the day that was celebrated as the rebirth in these ancient times. And it signified that on this location, on this particular day, December 21st at 11 a.m., a shadow that's 1,250 feet long, which is also V-steganography. 125 is a V-steganography. It's 5 times 5 times 5. 555 feet tall is the Washington Monument, and it casts a shadow that's 1,250 feet long. 5 times 5 times 5. So what we have is the V-steganography pointing again to what we need to be looking at here. And as we've already discussed, this is a birthing ritual. The birthing pains that are being felt relative to the astrological alignments of Venus transiting through the horns of the bull, and also what we're supposed to as a humanity every year be prompted to remind ourselves of at these times, just in a general sense, but specifically as it relates to all these alignments this year of reset 2020. It means something particularly different, and it's interesting that we're coming across it just at this point in time. So this is all going to be unwound in further episodes, but there are ways, guys, is what I'm telling you, that we can find clues out. Not everything needs to be a diversion. there are those things that we can take in as a community, and we can use the evidence available to us, look into them, be more cognizantly aware is what I always argue for, right? And then solve for them. That's why I started the community on the Patreon side the way I did with the channels, the server, the chat server, and of course the research channel. There's again a shout out to Womp Womp, who gave this piece of information to me, surfaced some steganography in the map of Virginia that we all need to take a look at here too. And this piece of information is going to be going into the Evernote server. So I'll be putting this into the Evernote as a share from Womp Womp, because he found a lot of the steganography that we talk about in this Susquehanna River mystery, which is something much deeper that I think is connected to these astrological alignments, and that we honestly need to look at further in order to interpret for ourselves, because it seems like the thing that or it and other things like it. Honestly, this isn't the thing. But the V steganography just keeps leading us in all sorts of directions. That's what happens when you get a Dakota ring. You can take action and fight. You don't have to trust anybody else's plan. Take it into your own hands. The Templars have given us clues. They're shepherding us along the way. They can't interfere with our free will, though. That's not the way of Christ. You gotta have your own free will. So the Templars aren't your saviors either. That's the other thing to keep aware of. We can only save ourselves by using the knowledge that they're putting out there in a way that we can recognize if we know how to look at it. So the Virginia company, remember we've talked about Maryland and Virginia, DC being in the middle of it. Mary the Virgin, Virginia, Maryland. This is very specifically why they picked those two locations as the border points for Washington, D.C. And then you have steganography for this Susquehanna River, which is a mystery that we're not actually going to get into in this video. I'm going to save it for another complete decode video of that topic, because again, it's going to be one that's more on the Destiny bent for that video game. I couldn't find a way to tie it in real quickly with this little closeout, even though Destiny's got a little bit of a cross overlap with the space themes and components. It'll be the next series I do will be less focused on space and more just on what the ancient mysteries are. So that's where the segue is going to tie in, and so again, Womp Womp. It's wonderful having critical minds share their thoughts with me. It's a cool journey. So anyway, like I said, this was going to be a little bit of a shorter stream here for the Patreon side today, guys, because we just wanted to close out what I was seeing, my conclusions to the pieces I've given you in this book will be in the video where we talk a little bit more about myth and we talk about the steganography pieces of these maps and what we can discern from them, because there's quite a bit to go on there. And if we're, again, looking at everything with a bent of steganography, we're going to get to the truth eventually. I'll leave you today with something to consider. Veni Vidi Vici. V steganography all over this, obviously, but Julius Caesar is the one who said this. Came, I saw, I conquered. Julius Caesar, there's something to it, to August named after Augustus, July named after Julius. Something to this event, I think, as it relates to it happening on the 7th day of July to commemorate Julius Caesar. And did the Gregorian astrologer priests who created our current calendar under the rule of him, did they line this up in a specific way to make sure that this event, as they forecasted, would fall on that day? I don't know. It's a question I have, but it's one that's very strong in my mind to question. When we have something going on beneath the scene where the we came, we saw, we conquered moniker as it would attach to him, was that the original purpose to hijack something like this? I'm beginning a whole thread on the Veni Vidi Vici true meaning, because how do you say, your spidey sense, my intuition is probably a better word for it, has been going off on this for some time as it relates. I can't quite find out though how the heck this thing plays into my own research, which is also why I'm kind of appealing to you guys doing such a great job with surfacing me stuff lately. What do you think? I can't solve this one. I can't find enough reference points to fit this in, but I know it's a big one, and I can't figure out why I don't see it in the right phasing, right? So one of the clues I'll give you is this. I found this band, Veni Vici, and they did this song, Veni Vidi Vici, October 14th, 14. And the 14 plays a huge part in the gematria of our banking reset, of course. If we go back to where did I have those? I thought that I had them up here. Maybe they're, there they are. So if you see on all of our banking reset terms, we had 14s and 41s, pretty prevalent, dishonest, mainstream, perjury. There's your 41s, fiction, disinfo. And then you also had Oz, 1441. So to reverse the spell of Oz, you need to look at the 14s, right? And so there's something to this song that's connecting me somehow right now with all these 14s coming out. August 14th, 2014 is when it came out. And you look at their song list here. Check set 22 compilation. Master builder number associated with the secret space technology coming out. And they catalog this as a PSYTRANCE artist. Meaning, again, is this an indication that Rome, using the Saturnian energy, worshiping Saturn, used this V steganography, Veni Vidi Vici, in a way that put people into a PSYTRANCE? Is this phraseology of the word Veni Vidi Vici itself a PSYTRANCE? Because it also says, basically, I'll just read the whole excerpt. Veni Vici is the PSYTRANCE duo formed by Avram Saharai and Matan Kadash, both well-known and experienced electronic music producers for over a decade. Iboga Records and FM Bookings, widely considered the biggest PSYTRANCE label and booking agency, was the first to see the potential of the project and invited them to take part in their well-respected family. Since then, Veni Vici have many, many more who have been ranked on Beatport as #1 PSYTRANCE artist and best-selling track of 2015 and 2017. Sliding into history in 2016, when the remix of Highlight Tribe, Free Tibet, gained over 20 million views. Hit the #2 spot when they became, and here's the other 22 I found. They continue to spread PSYTRANCE energy all over the world. 220 shows in 2016. So there are, and PSYTRANCE could be used in any one of two ways, right? You could use it to break the spell. You could use it to deepen the spell. Hey, K-Dax, good to see you. You did end up missing the stream, bud. I'm really sorry. You'll have to catch like both posted tomorrow, because we're going to be closing this one out here in the next like literally 3 or 4 minutes. But I'm glad I caught you just to say hi to you before the end of it. I'm glad you made it at least for a couple minutes. Anyway, people can catch these tomorrow, by the way, both part 1 on the YouTube. I'll post that to YouTube in the morning, and then I'll post this one at some point in the afternoon tomorrow, whenever the other one gets done processing. Yeah, by the way, KDAX, this is a shorter one too. This, because I'm basically, like I was telling everybody at the beginning, I'm closing out the space, kind of this Venus family space theme that we've been on. I think 5 episodes that we've already dedicated to it is enough, plus the 6 today. there are some other topics I want to move on to. So I was just attempting to close out some of those loose ends because the Mandalorian season had started, and there's some things in this book that I'll be wrapping up in the next episode, like I said earlier in the broadcast. So anyhow, everybody, this is all connecting. Notice how the Beskar steel from the Mandalorian is front and center with all of our Gematria 10 cent that we talked about over on the YouTube side earlier. Spot on with this, guys. The V cipher. V, the 22nd letter of the alphabet, of course, as well, is the other thing. Funny how I always call it the Master Builder number, but I always forget that V is the 22nd letter of the alphabet, which, of course, 22s for days in all of these. So I don't know, guys. I'm calling on you. Help me with decoding what Veni Vidi Vici truly means, because it'll... at the heart of it will be, I think, some sort of a clue to the calendar mysteries, and we can maybe prove or disprove easier some of these false history narratives. If we can, I'm almost confident. Almost confident. It's a really stupid way to phrase. I'm confident that if we can get to the bottom of this, that we can find out. Yeah, if I'm correct, but I'm quite confident that the spirit of it has something to do with that. So. With that, I am going to close out. I love y'all. It's been a long week, and I do appreciate your patience and me getting me some rest this last week amongst all the election chaos. And I've told most of you too, I'm going to make it up in streams this week. I'll be playing Death Stranding to finish that out too, so we can get all of our loose ends on the Patreon side done here in the next week, hopefully. And then we'll have fresh context to start with. But you can anticipate that all week. I'll put together that Destiny stream for the patrons here. I'll have that out maybe by next weekend. And we'll continue to track whatever it needs to be tracked with the current war situation, just so people are aware of the gaslighting that is actual and not the fake stuff. Anyway, this salutation's getting long in the tooth, so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to end both the stream and the recording at once this time around. I really appreciate all you guys that are joining over on Theta. I'm having fun doing the streams as opposed to the pre-recorded sessions where nobody watches it live. Anyway, have a good week. We'll talk soon, I'm sure. Hit me up on Discord if you got any questions. Send me a direct message over on Patreon, and we'll be seeing you.